All right. You know how much we love digging into the entrepreneurial world, and today we're talking business ownership.
Yeah. And specifically, we're going to be looking at it through two different lenses, which I think will offer a really interesting perspective by the time we're done.
I like it two sides of the same coin, so are you ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so first up, we're tapping into the wisdom of marketing expert, David DeSalle.
And he's giving us this really fascinating roadmap of how business owners make decisions, especially when it comes to that huge decision, selling their business.
Makes sense, it's a big one, and probably not a decision anyone takes lightly.
Right. And DeSalle lays out what he calls this client journey map, breaking down those four major phases. But he doesn't just talk about them clinically. It's not just here are the steps. He digs into how each step makes a business owner feel.
So it's more about empathy than just like a checklist.
Exactly. And to illustrate, he uses this fictional couple, Buddy and Nikki, so we can really visualize it. I mean, imagine you've poured your heart and soul into a business, it's your baby, and now you're facing this decision that impacts your legacy, your finances, everything. Those are big, weighty issues.
Absolutely. Way more than just numbers on a spreadsheet when you put it that way.
Hmm.
So how does this map, this emotional journey, actually play out?
So picture this first. You've got the awareness phase. This is where doubt creeps in. Like, is it even the right time? How much is my business even worth? They're dipping their toes in the water, maybe with a little hesitation.
You're probably not going to respond well to a hard sell at that point.
Exactly. And DeSalle gives this great example of how understanding this changes your approach. Like, as an advisor, you might create content titled something like 5 questions to ask yourself before selling your business, right? It's not, hey, sell your business. It's that empathetic approach.
Meeting them where they're at.
Right. Then, as they move into that research phase, that anxiety shifts a little. Now, they're hungry for information, digging into the how-to, like, okay, how do I find the right buyer? What is due diligence? And that's where you, as that expert, can really shine by providing that valuable guidance.
It sounds like they're moving from those bigger picture questions to those nitty-gritty details.
Exactly. And the more informed they feel, the more confident, which leads to the evaluation phase where they're comparing options, maybe feeling overwhelmed. Do I need a broker or an M&A advisor? What are the differences? And that's where you can offer those comparisons, case studies, really guide them.
Okay, so they're feeling more confident, but now they're at a crossroads, and they need help choosing the right path forward.
Yes. And then finally, they reach that decision phase. But even if they're excited, a whole new wave of anxiety can hit. What happens after I sell? What do I do with this money? What does my life look like now?
It's like they've climbed the mountain, but now they're looking out at this completely different landscape.
Exactly. And that's where sharing success stories, maybe connecting them with people who've gone through it, you become that trusted guide through this major life change.
Okay, so we've got this map, this emotional journey that business owners are on, especially when they're considering selling.
Mm,
And we're seeing how crucial it is to meet them with that empathy, right?
absolutely.
But now let's bring in our second source, which might seem a little out of left field, but I think it'll come together. We're talking about Paul McManus and his book, The Short Book Formula.
And he drops this really compelling stat right at the beginning, which is that 96% of business owners say that reading a book led them to secure more clients.
Wow, okay, that's a big number. But how does that tie back to, say, our friends Buddy and Nikki, who are trying to sell their business?
It all comes down to trust. McManus argues that for financial professionals especially, writing a book isn't about, hitting the bestseller list. It's about becoming that trusted expert, that go-to authority. And when you pair that with understanding what we just talked about, those deep emotions, that's where the magic happens.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but I think I need a little more convincing. How does this so-called authority advantage actually play out in the real world?
So think about it. Bonnie and Nikki, they're in that research phase we talked about. Maybe a little overwhelmed, a little scared, right? And they're frantically Googling things like best business broker, how to value my company.
And who knows what's popping up?
Exactly. And suddenly, amidst all of that noise, they find a book. And it's written by an advisor who specializes in exactly what they're going through.
It'd be like a breath of fresh air, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what McManus calls trust acceleration. By putting your expertise out there in a book, you're not starting from zero when you meet a potential client. They've already met you through your writing.
So you've kind of bypassed that initial hurdle of establishing credibility.
Exactly. And because of that pre-existing trust, they're more likely to listen to your advice, value your perspective. They're going to be more confident in the decisions they make, especially when it comes to a big, life-changing move like selling their business.
This is making a lot of sense. But let's be real, writing a book, that's a huge undertaking. I mean,
Ooh.
most financial professionals I know are already slammed just trying to keep up with everything else.
And McManus acknowledges that. He's not saying to go write like War and Peace here. He really hones in on this short book formula, hence the title. It's all about clarity, conciseness, making the biggest impact with the resources you have.
Okay, this short book formula is really interesting, especially for financial professionals. But I'm thinking about those listening who might be thinking, okay, this sounds great, but how do I even start?
Well, McManus actually addresses that directly. He says, start small. Focus on a niche. What's that one specific challenge your ideal client faces? And then you tailor your book to really hone in on that.
So it's not about trying to be everything to everyone, right?
No, not at all. It's about becoming that go-to expert for a select group, which makes you even more valuable.
I like it.
And he even encourages people to think of their book as like a business card, but on steroids. It's not just about giving information. It's about really showcasing your unique approach, your perspective, how you solve problems.
Right, so it's building that authority advantage we were talking about.
Yeah.
So that when they're facing a big decision, like Body and Nikki trying to sell their business, they already see you as that trusted guide.
Exactly. Now, there's another piece to this, which McManus calls gifting power, and I think it's so smart. Think about it. Have you ever gotten a book recommendation and felt like, ugh, this is just a sales tactic?
No, not really. In fact, it usually makes me more interested because it feels more genuine,
Right.
Like they're sharing something valuable.
Right. And that's the beauty of it, especially in the financial world, because it doesn't feel like that icky sales pitch. It's
Yeah.
an act of generosity. And that goes a long way in building trust and showing you care about their success.
Like you're handing them a map to navigate a tricky path, not forcing them down it.
Exactly. And especially when you're dealing with something as significant as selling a business, that trust is priceless.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. It's amazing how we started with these two separate ideas, the emotional journey of a business owner and then writing a book. And we've really brought them together in a powerful way.
That's what we love to do here, connect those dots, because whether you're that seasoned advisor or maybe you're just starting out, understanding those emotional needs and then the strategy behind positioning yourself as that expert, it can make all the difference.
Couldn't agree more. So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with this. What's one small step you can take today to put this into action? Maybe it's jotting down ideas for your book, reaching out to a mentor, or just reflecting on how you can better connect with those you serve. Whatever it is, take that step.